What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com. Welcome to week 12 of the Keto Bulk Update vlog series. There is a lot to dive in on this one, so let's roll up our sleeves and do just that. So we're going to start with just jumping into my chronometer dashboard here. This is, again, y'all have seen this a million times, kind of a illustration of my caloric intake over the past several months since I started using chronometer instead of my macros plus. As of lately, I have been eating more than 4,000 calories. Probably averaging about 4,500. Last night, for instance, I ate 4,800. Day before that was 4,200. So it's been a little bit of a variance, but I would say probably an average of about 4,200 to 4,500 calories. My weight has been trending up a little bit, but relatively consistent. I actually hit, I didn't know if I was going to hit 200 pounds at all or not in this building phase, but I hit 200.3 day before yesterday. And that's a little bit of a skewed weigh-in because I had just driven quite a bit and my electrolytes were off and I knew I was dehydrated and all the wrong things. I was outside my normal routine, but I did hit 200.3. So for all intents and purposes, we can say that I hit 200.3 on my scale at that point. Now, today I woke up and I was 198. So it wasn't like a true, steady, solid 200. I just hit that point for one moment in time throughout this building phase. But it kind of makes things easier from an illustration standpoint. So we're going to dive into what I'm going to do with that information. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about overall composition. So I got full-blown updated weigh-ins today, 198, like I said. I did my InBody today. That put me at, my InBody put me at 21.6%. I did a caliper test today as well. That put me at 13.09%. Obviously, the caliper is a little bit low, and I believe the InBody to be a bit high. If I had to guess, I would say I'm probably right around 18% body fat. That's kind of what I'm going to base things off of going forward. So, as y'all know, when it comes to a building phase, you got to ideally be in a caloric surplus, all that good stuff, and I've been really prepping or trying hard to be progressive with my overload principles in the gym, with the training. All of my lifts have been going up. I feel stronger. I feel like I've been putting on a lot of muscle. All that's a positive. However, I'm on the upper end of what I would comfortably be at in a building phase. So I believe that for me and my stats as a natural bodybuilder, kind of operating between 12% body fat and 18% body fat is a reasonable body fat window to exist in while in a building phase. I'm on the upper end of that. I could just try and maintain that 18% until I decide to do a cut again at some point in the future. But if I do that, there are some downsides, one of which being that I think it's, not that I'm going to be insulin resistant, but I do think there's benefit from a metabolic standpoint, kind of oscillating between the higher and lower body fat percentages. I feel like, if I was to go down to 12% for a period of time and then back up to 18%, I think my body would soak up those aggressive that aggressive surplus. I'd be like, that would benefit me in a lot of ways. It would keep me more insulin sensitive. I think there's benefit from shifting between 12 and 18% body fat as opposed to just staying at 18% or staying at 12%, if that makes sense. Again, 12% being kind of the minimum. Anything less than that, I think, would have a hindering effect on my ability to maximize lean tissue gain in this building phase. So, with all that said, I did take some updated measurements today as well. So let's dive into that real quick. So here are my measurements on 4/3. So that was when I started my prep in 2023. At that point, my neck was 15 inches, chest 43, shoulders 48.5, biceps unflexed. I'm not going to go through all these, but you can kind of see here, this is what my stats were at the onset of my prep. And I weighed 182 pounds on 4/3/2023. On 11/17, that would have been November, right before my last competition, so I was pretty freaking dialed in at this point, sub 155 pounds. My neck was 13 3/4, shoulders 45, let's see here, chest 39, so quite a bit dropped. Biceps unflexed 13 from 15, belly button 30.5 from 34. So just everything obviously much smaller. Thighs 21.5 from 25. And then now these measurements taken this morning on July 1st, 2024, neck 15.25, shoulders 51.25, chest 44, biceps unflexed 15.75, belly button 36.5, so that one's jumped up quite a bit, thighs 26.25. So everything here now is up from what it was here previously at the onset of my prep, except for calves. Apparently I lost some muscle in my calves. So that is interesting to me. So all of my measurements have pretty much gone up. All of my lifts have gone up. My body fat has also gone up. Again, I was 182 at the onset of my prep. I'm now 198 as of this morning. So I definitely am holding some body fat. If you want to look and see what this looks like in a picture format, this is what we're looking like. So this picture was at the start of my prep, 182 pounds, this picture right here. This was taken in November before that last competition. So I was probably 152, 153 pounds in this photo. And this is now 198 pounds taken this morning. So if I was to put these side by side from a caloric standpoint, from a body fat standpoint, right here I'm consuming 3,000 calories and I'm about probably 16% body fat, 15% body fat. Here I am taking in 2,000 calories when you average it out with the refeed, and I'm probably 3.9, 4% body fat in this picture. And then here, currently this morning, 198, taking in an average of about 4,500 calories and probably 18, maybe even 19% body fat. So that's kind of what that looks like laid out. I have no doubt that I have put on muscle in this picture versus where I was at the onset of the prep. All my lifts have gotten up from then. I'm showing more lean tissue. I've not yet gotten a DEXA scan, but I know I've got more muscle now than I did at the start of the prep. I'm obviously a little bit higher body fat too, and clearly higher body fat than I was in my shredded competition days. So for me, I do want to make sure that I'm staying in a building phase. There's no inherent benefit in me doing a mini cut or like a fat loss phase in which I'm dipping into a stark deficit at this point, because a lot of people do that. A lot of competitors compete every single year. And as a natural competitor, when you do that, then you're not really giving yourself ample time in a building phase. So how do I juggle the desire to kind of oscillate between 12 and 18% body fat and to not also dip into a mini cut deficit and hinder my muscle building potential? This is gonna be a little bit tricky. I wish I could draw something out, but just bear with me. I'm basically changing what I'm looking like from a baseline standpoint. So we're just gonna call this picture of me at 182 pounds my baseline. We'll just make it even 20-pound increments. So we'll just say this is 160, we'll call this 180, and we'll call this 200, all right? So 40 pounds from leanest to heaviest, basically. 20-pound difference between each stage. If this look, 180 pounds, is my baseline, then I'm in a pretty aggressive surplus now at 200 pounds, obviously. I do not want to dip below my baseline and dip into a deficit, at which case my muscle building potential in this building phase would be hindered. I don't want to try and get to this lean composition, but I don't need to be quite this fluffy either, because I think there's benefit to be had in kind of oscillating between that lower end of what I'm comfortable with in a building phase and the higher end of what I'm comfortable with in a building phase. So what am I going to do with that? I'm basically going to take myself now and go through phase 1 and 2 of my 7-phase protocol, which is going to be establishing my baseline and then finding my protein threshold, all while at a higher caloric intake than I would be if I was trying to establish, a legitimate cut. So if what I did with my last prep, this was the start of my last prep. I started at my maintenance intake of 3,000 calories and dropped from there to averaging about 2,000 to get to this composition. I don't want to start at 3,000 calories now and start dropping from that, because then I would be in a deficit as if I was going to go through another prep. I don't want to do that. But since I'm averaging 4,500 calories now, I could afford to drop from that intake and still be way above what my baseline, this picture here, maintenance intake is. So, for instance, If I'm at 4,500 calories now and I decide to drop to 3,500 calories, for instance, does that mean I'm in a deficit if that is significantly higher than what I was at my baseline maintenance? Technically, yes. But if I'm basing it all off of what my baseline is from a composition standpoint, I'm still in a surplus. It's kind of tricky. Again, I wish I could draw this on a whiteboard. But that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to go through phase 1 and 2 as I would if I were in a prep, but at a much higher intake at baseline so that I can clean up from what I am currently composition-wise, but not dip into a deficit that would put me, like in a prep status. I'm going to have 3, kind of proxies, so to speak, that I measure against to ensure that I don't dip into a deficit and therefore hinder my muscle building potential. One of those is that I do not want to get below 2,500 calories. Doing that would most certainly hinder my ability to build lean tissue, and that would put me in a legitimate deficit. The other thing is I do not want to get below 12% body fat. If I do that, then I'm below what I would comfortably be at in that building phase range. So I don't want to get below 12% body fat. And the other thing is I don't want to get below 175 pounds, likely 180 pounds. If I start dipping below 175 pounds, then I'm definitely in a deficit as well, and I'm kind of in prep territory there. Don't want to do that. But I believe that as long as I'm within, 12 to 18% body fat, probably 25 to 4,500 calories, and north of 175 pounds, my ability to build lean tissue is not likely going to be hindered, and I can maximize that potential while still being in a building phase and cleaning up a little bit from where I'm at currently at the upper end of that body fat range. Hopefully that'll make sense. Because when I'm at 180 pounds, I feel good, I function good. When I'm at 100 or 200 pounds, I feel good, I feel powerful, but I feel like, my joints are taking a little bit more of a hit. And I've got hunting season coming up, I got that 50-mile march coming up. There's no benefit in me having to carry around that extra weight if I don't need to. And as long as I don't dip into a deficit, I'm not going to hinder my muscle building potential. So that's my plan there. And obviously at 160 pounds or less, I am, stage ready, and I don't need to get to stage ready status. If I'm sub 155 pounds, I'm leanest man in the world status, and there's no point in me being like that lean right now with my goal being to build muscle. So definitely do not want to get into a deficit like that. So what does that all look like, numerically speaking, macro-wise speaking? Let's jump over here to my website, and I'm just going to put these numbers in here. So I'm a male, 32 years old, 198 pounds, 18% body fat, activity multiplier of 1.55. That's going to put a estimated total daily energy expenditure, maintenance calorie intake for me at 3,000. But again, that's pretty much what I'm at when I started my prep at maintenance, and I'm not trying to dip into a significant deficit. So I'm not going to base it off of these numbers, but just for illustrative purposes, if I was to be in a maintenance calorie standpoint, that would put me at about 3,000 calories. So I want to be a little bit up from that. I want to be kind of closer to that 3,500 calorie mark. So that's where I'm going to set my intake at. So I've got this, I'm in my AI now, and I'm going to do this new plan, 2024 bulk reset, add check-in. I'm going to do establish my baseline phase, and today is the 1st of July, and my weight was 198, and I'm pretty much going to be targeting 300 grams of fat, 150 grams of protein, and 25 grams total carbs, and that's going to be my start of these macros. So pretty much 79-80% fat ratio, 18% protein, 3% total carbs, and about 3,400 calories. I may bump that up a little bit more. I may do 3,500 calories, like maybe add another few grams of fat there. That's pretty much where I'm going to start at. I'm going to start there, and I'm going to go through my phase 1, because again, it's relatively low protein intake for me, but not really in the grand scheme of what I'm doing, because I'm going to be going through my phase 2 basically after this week, after I've established this baseline, see what my weight does at this intake, and then I'm going to increase my protein while simultaneously dropping my fat to find my own unique protein threshold in the context of a caloric surplus and building phase. So in theory, I will be able to diet down a little bit from the 18% body fat I am now and get down closer to that 12% body fat over the course of the next few months, all while still being in a surplus relative to what my baseline is at the onset of a prep, that 180-pound mark, and not hindering my ability to build lean tissue because I'm not dropping it down to like 2,000 calories. I'm starting at 3,500 calories or so. So still relatively high intake for me. And that is my plan there. I'm going to be going through all of this real time. I'll be documenting this. We'll do this for the next few months throughout probably the March and hunting season, lose a few of those unnecessary fat pounds so that I can be a little bit lighter going into the mountains for hunting and for doing that 50-mile march, and then just basically reset things at 12% body fat and then scale up again until I get to 18% body fat, and then I'll repeat this process and just put on as much lean tissue in the process as possible. So when it comes to what I'm going to be eating this week to hit those numbers, this is kind of some rough estimates here. So I'm going to have 8 tablespoons of heavy cream in my coffee throughout the day, 1 full Keto Brick, probably this is based off of the Bell's brownie batter flavor, about 6 whole eggs, a pound of ground lamb, and 2 tablespoons of duck fat with some electrolytes and whatnot, and that comes out to about 3,400 calories, 3,444. And let's see here, about 153 grams protein, 25 grams total carbs, 300 grams roughly of fat, and that's going to be the numbers that I'm targeting for this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we've got going on here. Also, kind of as a side note, and I know this video is already getting a little long-winded, but since I'm going through phase 1 and 2, I'm going to be making a transformation challenge that I get so sick of all these super short transformation challenges that are like 6 weeks long, 8 weeks long. People just drop into a massive deficit, screw up their metabolic rate, make their training suffer. I'm a huge advocate for doing things, over a more sustainable long-term approach, which is why I'm going to be in a building phase for the next 3, 4, 5 years, which is why I'm doing a reset here in the building phase, kind of oscillating between 12 and 18% body fat. This is going to take me several months to do. People that are doing a cut should budget 6 months to do so. So I'm going to host a 6-month transformation challenge, in which case people can go through my 7 phases and get freaking dialed in the healthiest manner possible. I'm going to be going through phase 1 and 2 real time with people, kicking that transformation challenge off, so people can know exactly what variables I'm manipulating and how they can do so on their own. That transformation challenge is going to be available for anybody that's a member of the tribe, which is my private community at ketobodybuilding.com. If you get the course, The Savage System, you get lifetime access to that community, or you could also just get the community as a separate standalone thing. I do weekly live calls on that, so people can ask me questions as it pertains to the challenge through that. But I want this challenge to be like healthy. I want everything that I do, everything that I promote to be healthy, for having a long game approach to nutrition and body composition, which is why I'm drawing it out over the next 6 months. So somebody could go through that and truly get the healthiest they've ever been, the leanest they've ever been, in a sustainable fashion. I'm doing weekly live calls on there, so again, people can ask me questions. So I'm super excited about that. I'm going to have a male and female winner. Each is going to win $5,000. So I'm giving away $10,000 in cash, plus a bunch of other prizes, keto bricks, things like that. So I'm sick of this whole quick fix, short-term mentality, and I'm just fighting against that in every way I can. Offering this 6-month transformation challenge instead of a 6-week transformation challenge is one way that I feel like I can do that. And I'm going to be going through the first few phases with people real time as I'm doing this in the context of a building phase. So if you're interested in that, check out ketobodybuilding.com, get access to the tribe community, and then jump in on that challenge if you are so interested. But that is a wrap on what I've got going on here for this keto bulk reset, I guess we'll call it. And I'll be updating y'all with this every single week like I do with everything. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. We'll talk to you next time.